Welcome guys to Frack We Got Here, a show that takes bents of the vents of that makes sense out of it all. I'm your host, again, on this show. We simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of limitations out there that simply want to do anything short, inform you. Hear how the Frack We Got Here. That's all we believe. Go up to the left, to the right, to the right. We go after all sides, more than one side of a story to everything. You need to know it all. Or the owner makes your own opinion, and that's what we try to do. Frack We Got. Thanks for listening. And hold on. It's gonna be fun.
Donald Trump intends to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. People he calls, quote, the enemy from within. America, this is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power. And Donald Trump intends to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. People he calls, quote, the enemy from within. America, this is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power.
And she was right. Thank you, Don Lemon. I appreciate it. But yes, she was right. Today's date, August 27, 2025, and this is how the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. On the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before we do get started, guys, let you know that we do pride ourselves on being a news podcast. We only cite from the most reputable sources with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Daily Beast, The Blaze, wherever extreme left or extreme right you get your views from. We simply don't do that. At the same time, we do try to watch our language. But let's be honest, words do fly on this show. At the same time, guys, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers. So viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So what can we say about the former VP, Madam VP? She was right. She was completely, utterly right. And for all those that don't believe that the former VP got it wrong, Exhibit A.
Crime Crackdown National, setting up a showdown with Democratic mayors and governors across the country. Today, 2 weeks after federalizing D.C.'s police force and deploying the National Guard to the nation's capital, the president signed several new executive orders aimed at exerting further federal control over D.C.'s justice system and directing the defense secretary to establish, quote, specialized units in the National Guard to be ready to be deployed to address crime in other cities like Chicago, which the president seemed focused on as his next target, slamming the state's Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker and chastising him for not welcoming the idea of federal deployments in the city.
I hate to barge in on a city and then be treated horribly by corrupt politicians and bad politicians like a guy like Pritzker. I don't like going to a town, city, place, a state, and then be criticized by some corrupt or incompetent governor where crime is rampant. When I have some slob like Pritzker criticizing us before we even go there, I made the statement that next should be Chicago, because as you all know, Chicago is a killing field right now. And they don't acknowledge it. And they say, we don't need him, freedom. He's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator. I don't like a dictator. I'm not a dictator. I'm a man with great common sense and I'm a smart person. And when I see what's happening to our cities, and then you send in troops, instead of being praised, they're saying you're trying to take over the republic.
And the president also saying that he's not ruling out military deployments to Chicago.
Are you prepared to order National Guard troops, though, into American cities if those governors don't request the federal deployment?
I am, but I also think that, look, Chicago, everybody knows how bad it is. Everybody standing there knows. We know. You don't have to be doing any studies. They should be saying, please come in.
We're expecting to hear from Governor Pritzker any moment on those threats. Speaking with NBC's Shaquille Brewster this weekend, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson saying the Guard isn't needed in his city.
This is not the role of our military. The brave men and women who signed up to serve our country did not sign up to occupy American cities. It's the antithesis to our democracy. Not only is it the antithesis to our democracy, and it's not what individuals signed up to do, it's costly, it's illegal, it's unconstitutional.
All of it comes as the president has sought to paint a picture of America's largest Democratic-run cities as crime-infested and attack Democrats as weak and dangerous.
What they're basically trying to do. So for all those that are playing the home game, yes, because you guys thought that DC was going to be the end of it. Did you really think that Taco and his group were going to sit there in DC and occupy it because they can only occupy it for 30 days? You didn't think you think that was going to be the end of it? Oh no, they are beginning. And again, the former Madam VP was right about him all freaking along. The fact that he cannot use the military because, there's certain rules out there in the Constitution that don't allow you to deploy military on U.S. soil. That being said, the National Guard, because apparently some people in Taco's camp tries to read laws, uses the National Guard as his own personal security force. But I love the fact that, Taco caught himself and said, I hate when I barge into a city and I'm not welcomed. Again, just an analogy. If someone barged into my house in the middle of the night unwelcomed, they are not going to be greeted friendly, as they shouldn't be. You should treat them as an enemy combatant. But I digress. But it is amazing to me how Taco wants to turn around and say, well, Chicago's terrible. Chicago's this, Chicago's that. And yet, just for full scope here, I just want to point this out about Chicago. He said crime was rampant, when really crime has been down 13%. If we want to be honest, in the case of murder, it's a 31% change. It's literally down from 370 from 370 to 256. Crime and sexual assaults, 1131, now 1094. Robbery, 5796, down to 3872. I can keep going down the list here, but the thing I'm getting at is, guys, overall, it's a 13% drop in crime. And I want to point this out because you guys do remember they tried to turn around and Fox News, the right, everybody. Chicago was their main talking point when it came to gun violence. Remember when we all, little children, especially what's happening in Minnesota, which is very sad, that children are becoming victims of gun violence because disturbed individuals still have access to firearms. States will not enact red flag laws. They will not institute more things for those in the 2FA community. I consider myself in that community because I'm also a firearms owner. But the thing I'm getting at is there's not many things. Every time something is done or tries to be done when it comes to gun rights and legislation, here come the NRA and the NRA lobbyists and the politicians who basically cash their paychecks. Oh, well, gun laws won't do anything because that won't stop criminals. That's the favorite one. The criminals don't obey gun laws. When the last couple of mass shootings weren't done by criminals. They were done by disturbed individuals that had access to firearms. They weren't quote unquote criminals. They didn't have a criminal record. Did they have a history of harassing others and police? Yes. Was it followed up on? No. At the same time, anytime it is brought up, what usually happens? Criminals don't follow the law. They beat it down with straw man arguments. But even now, even the other one, when you can't do straw man, they go for their trump card. Well, look at Chicago, strictest gun laws in the country, and their crime is rampant. And yet, crime is down 13%. But they won't talk about the fact that crime is down. Why? Because it basically affects their talking point. If you're sending in troops, supposedly in a crime-ridden city, then the whole thing is, well, crime must be so bad, but it's the National Guard in. Well, let's be honest. We know why you're sending the National Guard in. Because Taco wants to be a dictator. Taco wants so bad for people to love him and respect him because he romanticizes the idea of dictatorship. He looks at Kim Jong-il. He looks at him and goes, well, the people love him. Well, they don't got a choice. It's either love him or, that. But that's all Taco sees. He looks at Putin, and he looks at Putin like a husband looks at his wife when he gets home every night, which I'm assuming they do, but they know. The point I'm getting at is, guys, is that Taco wants to be regaled. He wants to be loved because apparently he's not getting it at home. But I digress. But he's wanting to do so in these cities where they don't love him. They don't respect him. And rightly so, because you're occupying a city and you're using the National Guard to do so. And even more so, which I want to point out, if you thought, like I said, if you thought DC was the end, Baltimore may also be it too. And here's the thing I don't get. He wants to send the military to Baltimore to quote unquote clean up crime because that's his thing, because that's your stick. I got to be tough on crime. I got to be tough on this. Let me point something out here. The Biden crime law, which again, people who hated Biden and Republicans love to bring this up. Well, a Democratic president signed, helped orchestrate the strictest crime bill that was signed in by a Democrat. Yes, it was signed in by Bill Clinton. It was signed in by Bill Clinton, which actually included the 3 strikes rule, which again did lead to a boon of corporations buying into prisons and, making billions. Yes, part of that did come from there. Here's the thing, though, that you are talking about a crime bill versus a goofball who is unfortunately our president that is overusing his power and now trying to occupy cities against their will. And I'll be honest with you, Chicago is definitely not going to stand for it. I love the fact that the governor and the mayor, they ain't having it. And Baltimore, again, the same way. Even Maryland, because again, Governor Wes Moore out of there sat there and said, I refuse to send troops. That unless there's an actual threat, not because a would-be dictator says so. But that's the part where the former VP is 100% right about Taco. She is 100% right about him trying to weaponize the National Guard after he cried about the Department of Justice being weaponized against him, when really it wasn't. They were just following due process, the strictest of due process, because a man baby was crying about the fact that he wasn't getting justified, when really he was getting all the advantages that white privilege could afford him. Except that bruise on his hand, which we all know. Unfortunately, it didn't heal like that ear did when you get shot. Anyway, but that's not the only problem with the National Guard. The other problem with the National Guard is, and I called this from the last podcast, I freaking called it. If you expected the National Guard to be unarmed for very long, lasted about a week.
To the 2,000 National Guard troops on Washington, D.C. streets, now authorized to carry military-issue handguns. The task force in charge of the operation says the troops will carry their pistols for personal protection, but will also be able to carry out law enforcement duties. 6 states have now sent Guards troops to D.C. under President Trump's anti-crime initiative in a city where violent crime has been declining for years. The president says the city of Chicago could be next for his anti-crime push.
Again, for their protection. Now, don't get me wrong about the National Guard. I respect those that did serve, except the ones that are following this order. And I'll say this again. If you are the National Guard, if you are in ICE, if you are in Department of Homeland Security, it is completely okay to not follow orders that go against the Constitution. Because I know a lot of people are sitting there saying, well, this National Guard, they don't have a choice. Yes, you do. You can choose whether or not you want to follow orders or disregard orders. You can on all sides. But what I don't get, and I will continue to say this, I cannot understand how as serving in the armed forces, I cannot understand, nor can I fathom, how in the world can you sit there and go on that man's orders? I'd rather sit in the stockade. I'd dang near risk this. I dang near would risk dishonorable discharge. I would, because I couldn't stand for it. At the same time, always drunk, never sober, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth decided that, okay, now you guys need to be armed. Really? Oh, armed military personnel in American City. When has that ever went wrong? Because it probably will go wrong. But it's also a Trojan horse because ICE is also there. But then again, ICE is everywhere because Stephen Miller, that Nazi behind the Nazi that we call Taco, wants everybody deported that isn't white as soon as humanly possible. So why else in a military-occupied city would you not send Department of Homeland Security and ICE agents there to pick up the undesirables, meaning people of color, and harass people of color? Because, like I said before, the last time I seen anybody get deported, they definitely were not of the pail or napkin variety. Tell me if I'm wrong. But moving right along with Taco, because he has his fingers in a lot of pies, unfortunately, but none on an exercise bike, he's very unhappy with his husband right now.
President Trump says he is very angry with Vladimir Putin as Russia keeps striking Ukraine despite a White House push for peace. Ukraine says it shot down 47 Russian drones overnight and 12 others hit targets across the country. Meanwhile, Russia says it downed more than 50 Ukrainian drones overnight, including 2 headed for Moscow. Yesterday, President Trump voiced frustration with the Russian leader about the strikes.
Every conversation I have with him is a good conversation. And then, unfortunately, a bomb is loaded up into Kiev or someplace, and then I get very angry about it.
But President Trump says he's still hopeful for a peace deal, and President Zelensky says he's ready to meet with Putin, calling it the format needed to resolve key issues. Now he says the same readiness is needed in Moscow.
I just love the fact he said, I am very angry with Putin. No, you're not. Because when you see him every evening, you get the knee pads ready. Let's just be honest about that. At the same time, Putin has already showed you. And here's the thing I'll say about Putin in Russia. Putin has sat there and already showed you that what he wants from the Ukraine is simple. He wants land. There is no trade-off. There is no negotiation. He wants land. That's the reason why Russia invaded Ukraine in the first place. And Ukraine, rightly so, defending their home. And Taco, considering himself the greatest negotiator ever, is doing nothing. But I'm going to be angry at Putin because I'm trying to get peace and he's still bombing them. Because that's what he wanted to do from Jump Street, genius. At the same time, it's like you're trying to show that you're tough, but really you're as soft as a paper towel in a river. You really are. And Putin is going to keep rolling over you, just like Kim Jong-il will roll over you. Just like every dictator you fantasize will literally roll over you. And I give it to Ukraine. They are not backing down as they shouldn't be. But peace talks? No. We already know what Russia wants, and Ukraine is definitely not going to give it up. But Putin being angry at his husband is no different than, well, let me not say that because although I'm happy for that couple, I'm just not going to mention them on this podcast. You can go everywhere else if that's your ray of sunshine. But speaking of things that are just, I can't say I didn't see this coming, but this is the reason, another reason that I'm about to show you is why, above all else, when it comes to the office of the president, they cannot be isolated nor protected, nor given immunity on previous crimes before they were president. Because you guys remember that $500 million judgment that Taco and his family got for basically mortgage fraud, for a decade plus of mortgage fraud. You guys remember that case to where Letitia Adams, one of the prosecutors that were on that case, won that case, right? Well, I'll just let the reporter say it.
We have breaking news. A New York appeals court has thrown out a $500 million fine in a civil fraud case against President Trump, his family, and his company. The court upheld a lower judge's ruling that found Trump liable of fraud by inflating his wealth to secure better business deals, but called the monetary penalty of more than $515 million excessive. Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katursky is here with more. So, Aaron, what went into this decision?
This is a 323-page opinion from the Appellate Division's First Department, and the judges are not in agreement here, but it appears they have found that after a 3-month trial, the judge, this was a bench trial, the judge, Arthur Engoron, correctly found that Trump, his eldest sons, and his business perpetrated a decade's worth of business fraud by hyping the value of Trump's assets to include his apartment in Trump Tower. They said it was triple its actual square footage. The value of Mar-a-Lago, his private Florida golf club, they valued it thinking it was an unrestricted waterfront property in Palm Beach when there are heavy restrictions on its development. But they said the penalty that Engoron imposed for all of this fraud of $464 million violated the Eighth Amendment. It was excessive. And so they've thrown out the monetary judgment and may be left to New York's highest court to determine what the ultimate penalty, if any, should be.
So what happens next?
Well, that's a good question. We haven't really heard from any of the main players. We heard from one of the attorneys who worked for President Trump at the time, Alina Habba, who is now in an acting capacity as the U.S. attorney in New Jersey. She says that this was a win for President Trump, which it clearly is if he doesn't have to pay a $500 million, which he had to arrange in escrow. But it is not over. And we can assume that the Attorney General's office here in New York will likely appeal to the state's highest court.
So let's think about this for a second. For all those that are just now coming in. So what that was, because guys remember, Letitia James, again, famous prosecutor, was the one that was able to get the judgment on Trump and his family for mortgage fraud. We know because, again, for almost 2 decades was mortgage fraud, blowing up his assets, increasing everything, all the above, right? All of it was found guilty by a jury of his peers and was one of the ways that he now became a convict, because it is a felony. So he is still a convict. And the judgment I thought was appropriate. $500 million for 20 years of fraud, or actually 20 years plus, if we're being honest, 20 plus years of fraud. And yeah, $500 million. Hey, better than Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff screwed people out of billions, and they still can't find that money. And yet that man is sitting in a jail cell somewhere. But what I don't get is that it got appealed. And now the appeals court, although I'll be split, sat there and said, oh, $500 million is too much. How? Okay, and I'm just throwing this out here. If I had assets that I completely and utterly made up, made it bigger than what it was, made it worth more than what it is, I sold this to be, if I sold a 1-bedroom house and made it seem like it was a 52-room mansion with a poolside and a helicopter pad, a basketball court, and an Olympic-sized swimming pool, if I made it seem like that on evaluation in order to get loans using my assets as collateral, and I did it for 20 plus years, I'd be in jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $100, $200. I would be in jail if I did that. But because Taco did that, and at first Taco wasn't the president. Letitia James, we thought he was done. He didn't have $500 million. He had to go get a licensed bond, and it took forever today for him to get that bond out there for him to be licensed on. And we thought he was done. We thought there's no way he could pick this up. And we thought Trump Tower was about to be seized by a black woman. That was about to be a great day in American history. But what happened? He ran for president. And this is the thing that always bothers me. That why is it that when you run for president, everything else gets put on hold? If you're on trial, it gets put on hold. If you're in an indictment, it gets put on hold. If you have pending cases, they get pushed back. Why? Because you're running a campaign. That was his excuse. His excuse was, I am running a campaign and this is going to interfere with what I am doing. And it did not help that the Republican Party sat there and went along with it. So what happened? Well, as history has shown us, every one of his cases got pushed back. Every one of his cases got delayed until one by one, they either got dismissed They either got dismissed, they either got shut down, or in this case, it got thrown out. Now, does that mean, oh, sorry guys, I got to fix my camera momentarily. Now, does that mean that he is going to be, his felony status is going to be revoked? Obviously not. It's not going to be revoked. He's still going to be a felon. Now, is there a chance that he actually may get out of this? There is to a point. To a point, he actually may get out of this. But again, they're appealing. But I'm just saying, it makes no sense that this man, because he ran for president, could somehow, some way skirt by. Because if anybody else did it, they'd be under the jail. They'd be under the jail for life. Imagine that you got away with 20 plus years of mortgage fraud and all you have was $500 million fine. And this man will never see the inside of a jail cell. He may see the inside of an emergency room, though, the way he's going. But I digress. Move right along, guys. Well, I keep on saying that Taco is trying to whitewash history. He really is. Because not only is he going to the Smithsonian Institute because he does not like the fact that white people basically are the worst things to happen and that they did endure slavery and that they did get an economic 400-year head start on black people. He is now trying to whitewash current history, removing the first ever woman that is the leading head on the federal board of governors. And he's doing it because he didn't like the way that she, based on his evidence, she might have goofed on a mortgage application. Cue the effing irony.
A member of the Federal Reserve Board who plays a key role in setting interest rates. The president says there is sufficient evidence Lisa Cook made false statements in mortgage agreements. Now Cook's firing back, saying she will not resign and is promising to carry out her duties. Our Lionel Moise has the details.
A major escalation in President Trump's battle against the Federal Reserve, an independent federal agency. The president now saying he is firing Federal Reserve Board Governor Lisa Cook, claiming there's evidence she made false statements on her mortgage agreements. In a letter to Cook, Trump writing, "I have determined that faithfully executing the law requires your immediate removal from office." He vowed last week to remove Cook if she did not step down.
What she did was bad. So I'll fire her if she doesn't resign.
Cook firing back overnight, saying, "President Trump purported to fire me for cause when no cause exists under the law, and he has no authority to do so. I will not resign." Cook has said she learned about the accusations through the media and says they're based on a mortgage application 4 years ago before she was on the board. This latest shakeup comes as the president has for months pressured the Fed and its chairman, Jerome Powell, to lower interest rates to boost the economy.
Well, I'd love him to lower interest rates.
Trump's latest battle with the...
And that's the part right there that I want people to catch. The part that I want y'all guys to catch out of that was basically her opinion, where she's at. For all those who know, Lisa Cook is the first black woman to be on the Federal Reserve Board. Federal Board. She actually also leads the Federal Board of Governors. Now, the reason why that position is important leads to the Federal Reserve because Jerome Powell, the leading chairman of the Fed, basically they decide, if interest rates will go up or go down, depending on inflation, depending on the economy. For all those that have been watching this podcast, that I'll point out Taco hates that man because he and the board, he and the Federal Reserve have yet to decrease the interest rates, which is what he wants. They're keeping the interest rates high to stag off inflation, which is again freaking high because of Taco's tariffs and his stupid ass bill, and the Republicans have passed. So therefore, interest rates are still high. Now, where does Miss Cook come into this? Miss Cook is an influential person on the Federal Reserve. Because of that, she is now a target. Why is she a target? Because Taco has figured out he cannot fire Jerome Powell. He also has found out, or will find out very soon, he can't fire Lisa Cook. Why? Because the president does not have the power that he thinks as a dictator that he can fire anybody he wants, not without just cause. Because I love that he sat there and said, well, I have evidence. Really? Where is it? Because if you have evidence, the Attorney General, your lapdog, Pam Bondi, would be the one indicting Ms. Cook and removing her from office, if you had the evidence. But I just love the fact that you just sat there and said, well, it's based off a mortgage application that she did 4 years ago. Really? Are you really the best person to be talking about mortgage applications and thinking that somebody might have fudged the numbers to make them look better? Are you really the person that should be talking right now, Teacup? That's all I'm saying, Teacup with tiny hands. But again, I love the fact that Lisa Cook is sitting there saying, I'm not going to freaking resign. If you got me, show it. But I'm going to keep doing my job, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I love the fact that she's actually standing up. I really, truly do. Because again, in order for us to actually fight what's coming, especially in the midterms, you're going to need people to stand up and actually fight. At the same time, again, I don't trust Taco on anything he says, nor his administration, because there's this little thing called evidence. You don't have it. You just don't want her. You basically want Ms. Cook out the way because you're trying to really deconstruct the Federal Reserve to the point to where you're hoping they're going to do what you want them to do. I'm sorry, they're not. But again, I digress. Moving right along, guys. I got to cover this story because number one, white people are funny. At the same time, I understand two things from the story I'm going to say before, and I'm just going to show the screen because you know where I'm going with this. Two things about white people I'll never understand. And I'm not saying all white people, but you know who you are. It is amazing how one thing will always get y'all riled up. But at the same time, something important y'all guys stay silent on. But let's just go ahead and play Cracker Barrel, shall we?
Cracker Barrel is acknowledging mistakes and rolling out its rebranding campaign that has sparked a fierce public backlash. We could have done a better job sharing who we are and who we'll always be, the family restaurant chain says in a new statement.
So when you just want more, Cracker Barrel has all the more. All the more.
Earlier this month, the company replaced its logo, featuring this character known as Uncle Herschel in place since the 1970s, with this sleek, minimalistic logo.
Cracker Barrel needs to feel like the Cracker Barrel for today and for tomorrow.
But many customers and investors weren't buying it. Cracker Barrel stock plummeted after the announcement, the company losing $94 million in market value last Thursday. The company saying, while our logo and remodels may be making headlines, our bigger focus is still right where it belongs, in the kitchen and on your plate. Uncle Herschel will still be on our menu, on our road signs, and featured in our country store. He's not going anywhere. He's family. It's not just the logo changing. The restaurant's interior design is getting spruced up with more comfortable chairs and sleeker decor, but the company vowing to keep the rocking chairs, fireplace, and games. Some customers still not happy. One posting, "You kicked Uncle Herschel to the curb. Now you are paying the price. Own it and stop making excuses." Another posting, "The biggest insult to your customers is acting like you hear them, but doing the complete opposite."
A brand can absolutely go too far in trying to become relevant. A lot of times they're trying to go to a hip, young branding agency, and so they'll go to something that ends up feeling really generic, almost soulless.
Experts say companies usually stick to a rebrand partly because they're so expensive.
Cracker Barrel is...
I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, I know I'm supposed to be completely professional here, but Cracker Barrel? Really? Cracker Barrel makes one change. It's not the fact that it gives you Sundown Town vibes. It's not the fact that anytime you walk through the Cracker Barrel, you could immediately feel the racism. But I'm really, because the Cracker and the Barrel, shout out to Ace Vane. If you know who Ace Vane is, look him up on social media. He's funny as hell. But they remove the Cracker and the Barrel. They go to a minimalist sign. And let's be honest, white folks lose their doggone minds. I'm like, you know what you did? You made Cracker Barrel, you made it woke. I don't like my Cracker Barrel woke. I want my Cracker Barrel racist. Put Uncle Herschel back on there with the cracker because the cane was a whip. You know that, right? That's how they sound. And I'm just like, did the menu change? Because y'all go there for the crispy edges, stay for the, come for the crispy edges, stay for the racism. That's what y'all usually do. And it amazes me that, again, with white people, y'all will just crash out. I think it's the word the kids use these days. You guys will crash out over a sign. A sign. But then again, that's y'all guys' history. Bud Light had a trans person for their spokesperson, and you had grown men shooting up cans. You had grown men saying, I will never drink Bud Light again, burning cans. It amazes me so when John Deere sat there and said, we want to include DEI policies. What do I will never do a John Deere tractor again. I'm going to get a Honda. That's how they sounded. Because whenever something was inclusion, whenever something was a change, whenever there was something that didn't agree with people, they just lost their doggone minds. I'll give a better version. I'll give the greatest example ever. You guys, and for all those that remember, it was about 5 or 6 years ago. Remember the Colin Kaepernick Nike ad? Remember when Nike was making Colin Kaepernick, they signed him up as their next spokesperson? And they, the black, the Colin Kaepernick jersey, the endless memes that have come from that. And what happened? White folks lost their minds. Going on social media talking about Nike has gone woke. How dare you get a man that disrespected the armed forces? I'm gonna burn my Nike jersey and shoes right now. Nike already got your money. I say all this to go back to Cracker Barrel and say, you guys are crashing out over a sign. And that is how I know it is way too easy to start a cult in this country. All you gotta do is find something that white people behold and take it away. I truly feel bad for you guys when more black people discover NASCAR. Oh, I can go around 500 laps driving 200 miles an hour and not get a ticket or get pulled over by police. Oh, that's going to be the last bastion of white hope that you guys will have freaking left. But that also being said, it's Cracker Barrel, guys. That store, for all those that have never been in there, because again, I'm in the South. I'm in the South, it's basically in Tennessee. Cracker Barrel's everywhere. It gives sundown town vibes. It gives racist vibes. The food, I admit, I had food out there. Food was good, but crispy edges are not enough to make me keep going in there when I can go do the same shit at home. But the fact that folks are crashing out over Cracker Barrel's sign. A sign. Well, what about the decor? Can you find a seat in that mother? Can you sit down? Has the menu changed? The fact that you don't see Uncle Herschel, who is nothing more than a figurehead or a relative of the founder. There's no lore to this man. There's no story to this man. He just happens to be a relative of the guy that started it. That's it. But because you don't get the rocking chairs, you don't get the as close to Southern heritage as you can get without putting a Confederate flag in there, you people lose your minds. But let's call it what it is. And I'm gonna go ahead and say what it really is, because you don't want inclusion where you are. You don't. You don't want inclusion where you are. You want to go to your corners and say, this is you guys. Because you don't want to say this out loud. Cracker Barrel should be wide and wide only is what you really want to say. Because you don't want to include anything. You don't want things to change. Because, you see woke as this terrible word when really it's just a big ass misunderstanding on your part. But it's Cracker Barrel, folks. Let it go. And enjoy your crispy edges. But moving right along, guys, I wanted to cover this next story as well, because if you guys shop at Temu, Shein, whatever the low budget stores are, which I'm assuming, don't get me wrong, have a lot of great stuff at low prices. You might be wondering why your shipments are a little delayed. This is why.
Suspended some deliveries to the United States after the Trump administration ended a long-standing tax exemption. So let's go back to our Jay O'Brien. He's at the White House. And Jay, this could lead to some delays.
Yeah, Rachel, we're also tracking new headaches this morning for American consumers after a chorus of mail carriers abroad, from DHL's German service to private and public post offices in countries like the UK and India and South Korea, said that they would pause some or all U.S.-bound shipments. And it's just the latest in what's expected to be this long series of fallout from the president's executive order getting rid of this key lesser-known trade exemption that's officially called the de minimis rule. It allows for products less than $800 in value to come into the United States without being taxed. And the government said that that was unfair to U.S. manufacturers and created a loophole for low-quality products and even narcotics to come into the country. But without it, prices on this wide swath of U.S. imports, including on low-cost fast fashion brands like Temu and Shein, are expected to go up. This rule has in some form or fashion been in place since the 1930s, but it will now end on Friday. And while those dozens of international mail carriers say that they will at least temporarily suspend U.S.-bound shipments as they try to deal with the fallout from this rule, major international carriers like DHL, FedEx, and UPS saying that their shipments will not be paused. Rebecca.
And that's the thing. Like, again, Temu seems pretty cool. I mean, before Temu, there was Wish. I'm just going to be honest. There was Wish, and then Temu, then Shein came along, and it opened up this market. It did open up this market to where you could get high quality-ish products. But the thing was the price. It's like on Temu, you could turn around and get a whole bunch of stuff like less than $100, and you maybe pay $5 to $8, maybe $15 in shipping. But it was better than what you're getting locally, to where you're paying 4 or 5 times that amount for the same thing, and the product would be crappy. And only Taco and his group would sit there and see, well, that's unfair. Well, manufacturing overseas has always been, it's been the king above all, because China, Indonesia, India, Japan, Korea, I can keep going. All those countries over there have got manufacturing down to a T. Their costs are low. They can pay people however they want. At the same time, they make bank by pushing their products back over to us, because America is not manufacturing, we're consumers. Literally almost 80% of everything that we have comes imported. That alone should tell you a lot. And because the very same people that are trying to remove the de minimis rule are the same ones that allowed in the first place. So yes, for all those that do shop on Temu, for all those that do shop on Shein, for all those that do shop on those websites that do overseas shipping, hurry up. That's all I can tell you before they do decide to shut down. Because what's the alternative? They raise their prices and be no different than Best Buy down the street. And I'm sorry, I do love a good bargain, because right now everything is going up but my paycheck. At the same time, this does not, in Taco's world, says that this is going to it's going to inspire manufacturing. It won't. It won't inspire manufacturing. Same way, like you won't be able to get a steel boom again. We will never have a steel city. Shout out to Philadelphia, but we'll never have a steel city again. Motor city. Shout out to Detroit, but we'll never have a motor city again. Because most American cars are not built with American parts. They're built with parts from different countries, multiple countries actually. We won't get manufacturing back. And because now farming and agriculture is under danger, because again, Taco and his modern day Gestapo are rounding up everybody. Farmers again are having a little bit of a problem trying to get in crops and get profits. Hey, it's 2016 all over again, the first time Taco did this. But we shouldn't be surprised. But yes, if you are one of those ones that do shop on those sites, might want to hurry up. That's all I can tell you. Also, guys, again with Taco, and this is why I say why Taco is senile and he only follows what he watches on Fox. Case in point, remember when Taco had this whole thing about foreign students going after Harvard and all these other spots that are welcoming foreign students in over American kids and trying to say that they're being favoritist? Well, you remember how I called Taco a teacup about a few minutes back? I'm gonna call him a teacup again, because after his meeting, and that meeting is with the South Korean president, says that Taco says the U.S. would accept 600,000 Chinese students. 600,000 Chinese students into their colleges to say they want to increase entrepreneurship and things of that nature, that he is welcoming more than 500,000 Chinese students. And again, if you think conservatives are worshiping the golden calf, some are pretty pissed. I say it'll probably last about a day. Because Marjorie Taylor Greene, who thinks that she has an opinion, and Laura Loomer, who's basically the mean girl for the Talk for administration, are also there saying this is a terrible idea. It shouldn't happen. All the things that we've done to make sure it doesn't happen. It just doesn't make any sense. So bear with me for a minute, guys, because we're going to go to Fox. And I know it's Fox News. Bear with me, because the reason why I say bear with me is because Laura Ingraham, right, one of the 3 head douchebags over at Fox News, because Fox News is not a real news station, it's an entertainment network, asked the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, to explain Taco's latest dumbassery. This is how I know, even for a fake ass troglodyte, because not the word I want to use, but it's the closest thing I got to compare Ingram to. Look at her face as she tries to literally softball this one.
An issue, Mr. Secretary, for, I think, the base of the Republican Party, certainly for the Ingram angle for many, many years, conservatives, is this idea of foreign students coming to the United States and taking spots that would normally be, obviously open to American students. The president addressed this issue as part of the Chinese trade deal, which might be in the offing. Watch.
We're going to get along good with China. I hear so many stories about we're not going to allow their students, or we're going to allow their students to come in. We're going to allow, it's very important, 600,000 students. It's very important.
Mr. Secretary, with all due respect, how is allowing 600,000 students from the communist country of China putting America first?
Well, the president's point of view is that what would happen if you didn't have those 600,000 students is that you'd empty them from the top. All the students would go up to better schools, and the bottom 15% of universities and colleges would go out of business in America. So his view is he's taking a rational economic view, which is classic Donald Trump, looking at higher education and saying,
but why are you
until we
Harvard?
Modify that.
Yeah. Let's, there is no way. The mental gymnastics out of that. So you're saying you're going to Reaganomics by bringing in 600,000 Chinese students, that somehow you're going to bottom out the 15% of U.S. colleges. This does not compute. And again, Howard Lutnick, U.S. Commerce Secretary, for what he is, he's an idiot. He has to do his best, because I can guarantee above all else, it doesn't make sense, because again, his base, we don't want foreigners here. And now you're welcoming in by the boatload. No pun intended. And it is amazing how he's trying to say this is a double-edged sword, because as Miss Ingram tried to point out, well, why doesn't he help Harvard? Because he wants to settle with Harvard. Harvard was one of the freestanding colleges that looked at Taco and said, hell no, we won't go or do what you want us to do. F you. Hence why he's saying, oh, well, we'll settle with Harvard, but they have to pay us $500 million on a settlement. Do you see what I'm getting at here? What Taco's trying to do on so many levels? That for the simple fact of the matter is, you as a commerce secretary couldn't even give a rational explanation. That didn't even sound. I'm thinking, because a lot of things, myself included, whenever I do speak, I can think about it and I say it in my head. like if I say it in my head or I say it out loud from by myself, so don't people think I'm crazy, is how does that sound? Because if it doesn't sound rational to myself, it's not going to sound rational on a network that's designed to be state news, that is supposed to make me look good, that is trying their hardest to make me look good, and even then I still sound like an effing idiot. Because he did. At the same time, I love Laura Ingram's look because she's like, dude, you're not. And it's like, that's how you know you have royally effed up. But hey, I would love to see what MAGA says about this, because their big thing is they don't want legal immigrants. But if you welcome Chinese, does that make you a hypocrite? I'm just saying. But another thing we need to point out, because we do got a couple more stories before we get to our feel good segment. This is what worries me. Because again, Taco's trying to be everywhere. Even in this case, where, for all those that don't know intel, that the U.S., as far as a country, or I should say, as far as Taco's administration is concerned, has taken 10% stake in Intel. Because again, Taco wants to have his fingers in every pie. Because if you guys see right there, that is Lutan, who used to be the former CEO of Intel Corporation until he was linked to Chinese influence, therefore has stepped down. And because of that deal, the U.S., specifically the Taco administration, now has 10% stake in Intel. And it worries me for an American technical company that 10% of it is owned by the U.S. government. At the same time, Taco will sit there and try to claim it as his own. Because that's the problem I have with this. The problem I have with that is Republicans always just say, well, we let the market do what it does. It has the invisible hand of the market will take care of everything. And yet at the same time, what are they trying to do? Take over businesses, take over HBCUs. Because here in Tennessee, Tennessee State University and HBCU, the local Nashville Legislative Council have tried for decades to go after TSU. They tried for decades. Won't go after Fisk University, also an HBCU. They won't go after Vanderbilt. They won't go after Belmont University. They won't even go after UT Knoxville or UT Chattanooga or UT Martin. They won't even go after Austin Peay. They won't even go after Tennessee Tech out in Cookeville. But they go after the one area because that's the one I'm pointing out. They want to privatize, and then they want to be like vultures and take it apart. This is why I am saying Intel having 10% of that is literally the beginning of the end. Now, I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, and their 10% doesn't have much influence on it. But as you can see, Taco made one comment about the CEO, and then weeks later, the CEO is resigning, and now the U.S., on good old Uncle Sam, has a 10% stock in Intel. I could be wrong, but history has yet to be right on that side of things. But again, Taco being a dictator has to own everything, and at the same time goes unchecked. But the last story I have, and speaking of unchecked, let's talk about the modern day Gestapo in Ice Barbie. I am talking about Kristi Noem, who is pretty much acting like the kid that goes back after wrecking a Beamer and wants another one, or in this case wants a G-Wagon. She says that ICE needs their own planes in order to deport people faster. Keep in mind, she was already in front of a subjugational committee for blowing the ICE budget within 3 months of her having office. Within 3 months of her having office, she has literally and figuratively blown through the budget, and now is asking Congress for additional funds to purchase a fleet of planes in order to deport people faster. And here's the scary part. She actually might get it. Because as we've seen in the big beautiful bill, ICE is getting a blank check. ICE is getting a blank check right next to the Department of Defense, which, by the way, the Department of Defense has never, and I do mean never, passed an audit. Trillions of dollars has went through the Department of Defense, and they can't account for a single goddamn penny. But at the same time, ICE may actually get it. And that's the scary part. That's the part that I'm worried about, that they can turn around and they can actually get. Because ICE right now is doing Stephen Miller's job. ICE right now is pretty much trying to sit there and say, above all else, this is what we want to do. And because Trump set a mandate and Stephen Miller is trying to get within good graces, so what do? They're going to turn around and give it to him. And that alone screams volumes. And I do mean screams effing volumes. But alas, we should not be surprised. We're just going to see what happens. How can I put this ever so nicely? Well, if you've seen the way Trump is, he may make it, he may not. It's like watching Dean Cain. It's like watching a former Superman go through an obstacle course. It's funny as hell. And I kind of wish I had that freaking clip. For all those that don't know what I'm talking about, former Superman turned racist somewhere in between a different world and Superman Lois was basically on the training course for ICE. And it looked so effing terrible. And I do mean,
why did you want to get involved?
But let me see if I can find it. Actually,
why did you want to get involved with ICE?
Quiet you. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find it, because we need something funny to laugh at. And yeah, we need something funny. We definitely need something funny. So hold on one second. Yeah. Let's have some fun with this, because again, for all those that don't know, this is Dean Cain going through a recruitment course with ICE. Laugh if you want to, because I know I'm going to.
And they're not. They're phenomenal people.
And so this time, Dean Cain isn't flying there. He's going through that obstacle course and training to be an honorary ICE agent. He was working hard out there, and this is exactly what those recruits will do as they're picked one by one. And they're at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Brunswick, Georgia. This place is amazing. You should see it for yourself. He hit the shooting range, too. He was out there with the acting ICE director, Todd Lyons. It was hard to tell who had the better shot there. They were both pretty good.
Let's point something out for a second, y'all. I'm just gonna kill the noise on this, because if you crawl this slow, I'm like, you could be running after Big X the Plug, and I'm even certain at this point he can outrun DK. And no offense to Big X the Plug, but still, if that's how you train, I am not worried about you. But again, it's Dean Cain, so we should not be surprised about him, because this is all for basically attention. And at the same time, like I said, it's pretty effing funny, because the last time I seen somebody go through that slow through an obstacle course, they were shown the door. But ICE, at this point, if all you can get is Dean Cain, ICE, that just shows how low in the totem pole you really are. But that being said, guys, we're going to go and move on to our feel-good segment, because usually on How the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes makes you faith in humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday. We want to leave you guys out some good notes, some positive vibes, and good vibrations, and hopefully the next clip that we do have that is about a women's professional baseball league, a league of their own, some might say.
Tonight, it's been a while, but it's high time for another league of their own. A swing at history. Today in Washington, D.C., tryouts for the new Professional Baseball League for women. Over 600 of the best female players representing 9 countries showcasing their skills. Pitching, hitting, sliding, and catching. Hoping to be one of the 150 to play for the new league.
This league is for everyone who's ever been told that they can't play baseball.
It's something not seen in more than 80 years. The first U.S. pro women's baseball league since the All-American League. Those players celebrated in the film A League of Their Own. Maybelle Blair was there. Today, now 98 years old, back in the dugout, cheering on the next generation. passing the bat to new trailblazers like superstar Monet Davis, the Little League World Series pitcher who wowed fans in 2014.
It means a lot for me to be here just because I've never gotten to play with all women in baseball.
I've been dreaming of this moment since I was a little girl.
An historic beginning for the new league debuting next spring, when we can all look forward to seeing more of this.
I'm all for it. There's nothing else I can say about that. I do believe that we should have already had a women's professional league as far as baseball goes. For all those who don't remember, if you're my age or older, a league of their own was actually loosely based off the first league, off the American League. So again, I'm all for it. And to see that young woman, because wow, I haven't seen her since the Little League debut. Yeah, we need more of that. Just like the WNBA right now is finally getting traction. WNBA has been around for for decades, and it may have needed a Larry Bird, Magic Johnson type duo, but they got it. They're also getting endorsements. They're also getting more investors. People are coming to the games. Tickets are selling. Merch is selling. I love the fact of where the WNBA is going right now. I see the same thing for this women professional baseball league, the WPBL. Sorry, it's gonna be a while. I apologize, but definitely rooting for them. Want to see success because again, there's examples out there that need to be shown, and I love it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. But that being said, guys, that's going to do it with this podcast. Thank you all for liking, watching, letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here. I do want to shout out Always Press Record TV. Why? Because this show, like How the Frack We Got Here, can be seen there. You can check them out on the Roku channel app or on the Amazon Fire TV at APR TV, along with other shows out there. Definitely check them out. You will not be disappointed. Also, BlurStation.com, again, a place to where you can find movies, television shows, things of that nature. The site is growing, and you definitely want to jump in on that. Simply put, go to BlurStation.com, hit the Join Now button, and then it's $10.99 a month for BlurStation. You can stream it on all smart devices. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. Also, run for office. I know there are plenty of other sites out there that if you do feel the call to serve, whether it's locally or nationally, that can help you with that. Run for office is one of those because, again, we do need more people to serve, to find different parts because if you haven't noticed looking around, the world is pretty much going crazy, and I do not want to see what it looks like post the midterms next year. So if you do feel the need to serve, definitely check out this site. It'll show you how you can get on the name on the ballot, hopefully run and win, and make a difference, whether you're locally or nationally. Also, guys, definitely check out How the Frack We Got Here on all socials, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, TikTok, and Instagram. Also, myself, Black_Spartan615 on the socials. You can like and follow me there. I usually talk with everybody. Just don't make it weird. I don't have to start blocking people. But yes, at the same time, guys, I know we're in false fall. When I say false fall right now, it's not freaking hot outside. The sun's not trying to kill us. It's a nice and brisk 80 degrees. For a guy that loves fall and wintertime, this is great because when you got a lot of hair, the summertime is not your friend. So, but it is false fall. So we are expecting summer 2.0 somewhere in the middle of September until we finally get old man winter. But again, go outside, enjoy some grass. Go, unplug from technology if need be. Go check on your friends, whether on their phone or texting, and protect your peace, protect your strength, and don't doom scroll because the world may seem like it's ending, but this is cycles. This is just the next one that's coming around, and if we live long enough, you'll see it come back again. That also being said, guys, definitely do check out other platforms as well. I say platforms, I mean other podcasting groups out there: Blurred's Eye View, Tafari TV, Room Full of Blurs, Geek by Heart, Fresh Press by Z, Navy Blurred Current Speaks. I almost said Tafari TV again because I know he's definitely streaming right now. But definitely check them out as well as other shows as well. Also, my other show, Get Bit Podcast, which again will be this Friday. Definitely check us out as we do cover video games. We try to make it a happier time than we do over here, but we do give you news here. But yeah, like we said, midterms are coming up, guys. If you're not involved, be involved. If you're not informed, please get informed. Please hold these people that want to run to their feet to the fire. Because trust me, Texas already has laid down the gauntlet with redistricting their maps to where Representative Jasmine Crockett's seat is gone and Representative Al Green's seat is gone, and they've gained 5 Republican seats, making it a supermajority in Texas. California, Illinois, and other states are doing the same in order to protect our democracy. So again, guys, this is what Republicans are scared of in 2026. They know because of everything they've done and that people aren't happy, that everything is going up but people's paychecks, that they may lose the House and the Senate come next year, which would make Taco's very next couple of years problematic. I want him to be problematic. I also want him to finally face justice, but that's a whole other thing. But guys, be active, be informed, stay vigilant, and I promise we'll all get through this. The last thing I'll say about the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, guys. We are simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better as a society where it's informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs from our past and making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black woman, maybe one day, to be called Madam President. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat them. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go about our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other. And I promise you, we'll get through this. Stay safe, be brave, stand tall, fight hard. Peace.